Hi, I'm Anna McKerrow. This is my Magical People series, and today I'm here with Val. Hi, Val.
Hi.
So, could I ask you to?
Lovely to see you.
Oh, it's so nice to have you here. Can I ask you to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, my name's Val Thomas, and I live in Norwich in Norfolk in the UK. And I've been practicing witchcraft here in the same magical space for almost 30 years now. And I suppose you would call me a traditional witch, although I'm not really fond of labels. I'm also a crafts person, a teacher, a herbalist, and a writer. So, I'm very much involved as well in the pagan community in Norfolk. So, I have a lot to do with a lot of people around here. Yeah.
That keeps you very busy.
Yes, I am very busy indeed. Yes.
Yeah.
And interestingly, because of the whole lockdown thing, our moot has grown enormously because it's been online, and so we now have people joining us from all over the world.
Oh, amazing! That's brilliant.
Yes,
That's one of the pluses of the whole situation.
it is. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, so there's lots to talk about there. So, Val, if I asked you to kind of describe your overall beliefs and perhaps what your daily magical practice looks like, what would you say?
Yes, well, I suppose I am one of those kind of magical practitioners who believe in the reality of the gods and spirits. I do see them as beings that are really here, all around us, who can be contacted and spoken to, and I work with various levels of spiritual being, from the gods of the land and the landscape where I live, the fair folk, and other spiritual beings like mermaids and dragons and all of these kind of creatures and characters all feature in my practice, and even some saints as well, some local saints which are like more recent emanations of older practices and energies of the land, if you like.
Amazing. So, what are some local saints around Norwich then?
Well, two of my favourite saints are both Anglo-Saxon saints. One is a fabulous lady called St. Withburga, who's from a town in mid-Norfolk called East Dereham. And her story is that she was the daughter of King Anna, who was killed in battle. And at that point, she decided that she would like to set up a nunnery in Dereham. So she moved away from the coast where she was living, moved to Dereham and started work on the nunnery, but she ran out of resources. So, she prayed or did some magic, however you want to look at it. And a pair of does arrived and stood still and allowed themselves to be milked, so that she could then make cheese for the workers and sell the milk and the cheese to get enough money for the nunnery. But what happened then was that the evil reeve of the town became jealous that St. Withburga, she wasn't a saint then, of course, she was just plain Withburga, but he was still envious that she had so much attention, and that the deer were attracting people to come and look at them. And so he decided to go out and hunt the deer. And he was just about to catch up with them with his horse and his hounds when he fell off his horse and broke his neck. So the deer stayed, and St. Withburga finished her project. Of course, she died in due course, and after her death was said to have performed many miracles. But then first of all, her body was taken from outside the church and translated to inside the church, and it was said to be an uncorrupt body. So she was just the same as she had been when she died. And when she was inside the church, then her shrine became really popular and attracted lots and lots of pilgrims. And the monks of Ely then became envious of her success and of all the money that was coming into East Durham, because obviously in those days pilgrimage was a really important source of income for monasteries. And so they decided that they would steal her body and take it away to Ely.
Oh my God!
Yes, indeed. And so they said that they were going to come to Durham, led by the Abbot Britnoff, and have a party for the people of Durham. So they came along and they brought plenty of wine and food and encouraged everybody to celebrate, but didn't drink much themselves.
Oh.
So when everybody was enjoying the party and then falling asleep afterwards, they decided it was a great idea to steal the body of St. Withburger and take it away. So they were able to get away, and they'd got quite a long way towards Ely when the monks and the nuns of Durham and the people as well realized what had happened, and they gave chase, but they were not able to catch up with the thieving party, who managed to get St. Withburger's body onto a boat at Brandon and take it away to Ely. So they came back really, sad and miserable to Durham, only to discover that in the place where her body had been, a holy well had sprung up.
Oh, wow.
And that holy well became a fantastically important site of pilgrimage, more so than it had ever been before. And in a Viking raid on Ely, the bones of St. Withburger and her holy sisters were actually lost. So Durham did better. But there are just so many magical motifs in there. The whole thing with the deer and the milk and the holy well. It's just full of magic. And the way that in our tradition we see this is that she is a later emanation of the basic goddess of our landscape, who is the Lady of the Chalk, and St. Withburger is like a kind of a more recent version of her, and another way to look at her. And yes, so St. Withburger can be called upon in magical practice, and she's actually
wow,
being to call upon for certain specific things that you might want to achieve.
Okay, maybe to foil body snatchers particularly. Who knew that the monks were so naughty?
Well, yes, they were pretty unscrupulous, really. So yes, but she's a wonderful character, and of course, one of the things that's very important is that she was a Waffing princess. So the Waffings traced their royal dynasty back to Odin, and so effectively St. Withburger was a descendant of Odin himself.
Oh wow!
That's one of the reasons, she is said to have sanctity in her blood and to have such powerful magic and such powerful protection, not only from the Christian God, but also from the more ancient patriarchy.
Wow,
so a fascinating character.
That is fascinating. It is really interesting, isn't it, when one researches the historical figures from your own area, as well as being connected to a pantheon of other gods and things sometimes from other cultures, which is also really inspiring and interesting. But I quite like the element of researching lots of things about your local area, really, kind of people of note, but also places like you're talking about springs and sacred sites and things like that.
Definitely. and also the geology for me and for the people that I work with. The geology of our landscape's really important. Now, I mentioned our White Lady of the Chalk, because this area has chalk underlying it, and that really is important for everything that grows here. And everything that flourishes here, it depends on that kind of chalkiness of the soil. So she is very much the goddess. And if you go to the coastline, because Norfolk has a wonderful coastline, and just off the North Norfolk coast, there is a very large chalk reef. And when the tide goes out, you can see part of the chalk reef emerging from the sea. And we always say that, that is Our Lady of Norfolk stepping out of the sea. There she is. And sometimes she comes out pure white, because there's nothing on there. And sometimes she comes out green because she's covered in seaweed. So she's always different. And the Lord of Norfolk is the Lord of the Flint, because the flint is another important stone which really goes along with the chalk, because the flint is born of the chalk, geologically speaking. And so in a way, he is her son. And he's a hunter, because you can make flint arrows. He's a woodsman, because you can make axes from flint. And all around Norfolk, you see the buildings are made of flint, the churches are all made of flint, and the protection around the city of Norwich, the walls, made of flint as well. There's not a huge amount of it left now, but what there is, you can see it's flint. So these two characters are everywhere, and they're like the kind of the bedrock of the landscape and of our magic as well.
What a fantastic start to the interview. I was not expecting that. So chalk is quite, am I right in thinking that chalk is sediment from where there has been water on the land? Is that right? And it's kind of compressed shell and bits of fish bone or whatever.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So really, it is the bodies of ancient creatures. So as well as the other kind of powers that I've mentioned that the Lady of the Chalk has, she also has all those ancient memories of creatures who have been here before.
It's very deep, isn't it? And it's so interesting then, because it's kind of a water and earth combination a wee bit.
Definitely, but also very much of air as well, because in Norfolk we have these huge skies that are just wonderful to see, and and wind blows in off the North Sea as well, so it's quite spectacular.
Yeah. So people watching, I think, will already get a really strong sense from you about how rooted you are in the natural world. And I have met you before through your herbalism.
Yes.
And would you like to tell us a bit about that?
Right. Well, I've always been interested in herbs, ever since I was a child. I remember my parents' garden from when I was really little, going out there and touching the leaves of things like rosemary and mint and lavender, and really enjoying those amazing smells and that aroma, which is just so fantastic. And I think I got the idea then that I'd like to somehow do something more with this, but I had no idea that it was possible to be a herbalist, as a job. I bought various books. My first ever book on herbalism was Paul Hewson's Mastering Herbalism, and I had no idea at the time of what an important and an influential person he is in traditional witchcraft.
Yeah,
that was the first book that I just happened to pick off a shelf and thought,
meant to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I taught myself a lot when I was a teenager, and bought herbs, and kept them on my windowsill and looked after them. And then when I was duly packed off to university to study English, because of course, you know, nobody would have thought of sending me to become a herbalist. I didn't come from that kind of family. But yes, so one of the things that that we studied was Anglo-Saxon literature, and that as part of that, I came across the manuscripts of Anglo-Saxon medicine, and there are 1,000 pages of manuscripts about medical practice from the 10th and 11th century. Mostly that's when it was written down, and I thought these were amazing, and I did actually have a go at making up some of the remedies, not realizing, of course, that, you know, many of the herbs that that were used, you know, over 1,000 years ago are almost the same as we would use today.
Amazing.
Yes. So that was another step along the herbal path, if you like. But then I went to Sweden to live for 7 years, and I met an old cunning man in the forest, and he was a brilliant herbalist, and he taught me a lot as well. And then when I came back to the UK, I was aware by that time that it was possible to train as a medical herbalist, but I didn't have the money, and I didn't think I had the time to do it. But then I'd been running some courses on folkloric things connected with herbs, and I'd had an amazing weekend doing loads and loads of herbal things with people, rituals connected with herbs, divination using twigs and plant oracles and things like that. And at the end of it all, when everybody had gone home and I'd really enjoyed the teaching, I thought, oh, now I can relax. But then I got this message that I had to do the training. I had to find a way. So I spent a year working as hard as I possibly could, saving as much money so that I could pay for the herbal medicine training. And I finally finished it when I was 50.
Right.
So, you know, it's been a long herbal journey, but now I am qualified and insured to see people for herbal medicine and actually practice as a medical herbalist as well as a folk herbalist.
So what's the difference between the two?
Well, I suppose people who call themselves medical herbalists are people who have done an official training course. These days, it's normally a degree course at a university, though there are other ways to approach it as well. But rather than, you know, learning about the, you know, simply about the herbs, you have to do a lot of the same kind of training that doctors do with, you know, anatomy and physiology, and you have to learn to do physical examinations, and you have to understand about, you know, the kind of orthodox drugs that people are taking as well, because it's important to be aware of any kind of contraindications, and yeah, and learn a lot about medicine as well as about. So yeah, that was quite challenging. I'm not a scientist, but it was a very scientifically focused course that I did.
Yeah. And so as on the other side of it, kind of on the, did you call it folk herbalism more?
Yeah,
that involves more of what you were talking about in terms of the less sciencey approach, but perhaps more of the ritual and the connecting to the spirit of plants and things like that.
Yes, and very often, you know, people traditionally who were folk herbalists, you know, perhaps they would have been taught by a family member. You know, the skills may well have been passed on in the family, but of course that doesn't happen so much these days. And there are some people who are fortunate enough to have that family background, but it's the exception rather than the rule now, isn't it? So a lot of us end up having to get our training from, you know, more academic sources.
Yeah, and of course it's worth saying here that if people watching this are thinking, I love Val and I want to learn everything from her, then they can, because you do a herbalism correspondence course.
I do, yes. It's called Herbs, Healing and Magic, and I wrote the course when I finished my herbal medicine degree, because what I really wanted to try to do was to synthesize that scientific approach with a more magical and folkloric kind of approach to it. So try to take the best of both traditions and put them together and present them to people in a way that that says, you know, you can have both. You can have the science and the magic and the intuitive approach as well.
Yeah, brilliant. So I was going to ask you actually, Val, as well. You were talking about you went and learnt herbalism for a while from a cunning man. Now, some people
Yeah.
might not know what you mean by that. What does that mean?
Well, he was just an old guy who lived in the forest on his own. It was in Sweden, so you know the forests there. You know they're big and deep. They're really like kind of proper magical forests, and he lived in a typical Swedish house, which was you know painted with red oxide paint with white gables and white round the windows.
Oh.
And he just lived in very close contact with the land. You know, he treated animals, he treated people who came to him, and he lived practically without buying any food in at all. He just foraged near to where he lived, and in fact he didn't import any herbs. He only used the herbs that grew near to him. I mean, that was his kind of approach. But I suppose, you know, thinking about cunning folk from the past, that they were people who treated people and animals and did magic for them. You know, people tend to think of the witches of the past were going around putting curses on people and perhaps doing some baneful magic. And the cunning folk were often the people who were thought to be, you know, helping to protect people against the forces of evil magic. And of course, a lot of healing of animals, and you know, finding lost animals and all of those kind of things.
It's such a service to the community, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, absolutely.
Okay, what shall I ask you next? There's so many things, aren't there? Tell us about, could you tell us a wee bit about working with, you talked about the fair folk and your practice, when we were at the beginning, when we were talking about kind of your overall thing. How does that work for you?
The fair folk, as I experience them, is they're all around us. You know, some people will tell you that, you know, that fairies are really little, or fairies are absolutely enormous, about 10 foot tall, if not more. But in my experience, they come in all shapes and sizes. And in the garden, where I have the ritual circle that I've worked in for all these years, we have quite a varied set of these kind of spiritual beings. I mean, we just call them the fair ones, you know, and some are quite big and you know, about 6 foot tall, and they tend to be just kind of shadowy figures that you see flitting around. Others are what are known in Norfolk as Key Sprites, which are almost like little twig-like characters who flit around, and you hardly see them within the branches of the trees, but just occasionally they make themselves known. There was one time a couple of years ago, we were doing a ritual in the spring, and there's a cherry tree in the east of the circle, and a Key Sprite was sitting in the tree and got overexcited with what we were doing and leaned out too far and actually tumbled out of the tree. And shot off really quickly across the circle and disappeared. But one of my magical companions, who's an excellent artist and had got a good view of this Key Sprite falling, it did a beautiful painting of it afterwards. So there are plenty of them around in different types. But one of the things that we think is really important is always to take offerings for them. You have to keep them sweet. You know, there are lots of stories about, you know, how the fairies can appear to be helpful, but then actually they turn against you. So it's important that you always show your respect to them and always keep them sweet. So when we go out and we talk to them, and very often if we are having a special meal of some kind, we'll take a bowl of that out for them, and some drink out for them. And very importantly for Norfolk fairies, I think particularly, is that whatever you grow, any fruits or vegetables, the very first one, you must give it to them. So we have a special place in the garden where we offer the first fruits of everything we grow.
Yeah.
So if you have a big harvest, or that's fine. But if the harvest is not so good, if you only get one cucumber or one tomato in a bad year, you still have to offer that one to the fair folk.
It's just the way it is.
That's just the way it is.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, that's so lovely. And I was sorry, this is a tangent slightly, but I was wondering if you've got some interesting things on your shelf there, because this is just such an amazing view of you with your lovely big plant there and your books in the background. What's on your shelf?
Well, yeah, this is the room that I call my playroom, which is where I do all my work and a lot of my magic. I tend to work outside magically mostly, but I do keep quite a few of my magical items around me. So there's this one.
Ooh, what's that?
That's an old Victorian bell. That it's just a brass bell, like almost like a school bell, but it's got a deer's foot on it. I mean, they're Victorian, so they're not made recently, so but because the Lord and Lady of Norfolk we see as antlered gods, so they're very much connected with the deer. And of course, I told you the story of some and the deer were important in her story. So the bell, the bell is that connection to the deer. And actually, we have deer in our garden as well.
Oh dear.
Yes.
Lovely.
Yeah, I mean, I do live quite near the city centre.
Oh right.
We have deer in the garden, so that's one of the things.
Yeah.
Have a crystal ball right there, because you never know when you might need to have a little look, see what's going on.
Lovely.
And I have a little sheep here, which I think you noticed earlier, which was a gift from a friend. It's just a little needle felted sheep.
Oh. So, Val, could you tell me then what does like an average day look like for you?
Well, one of the things that I will spend some time doing each day is some spinning, partly because I like to have plenty of yarns to use for clothes and for magical items, but also because the rhythm of the spinning wheel is very important to my magic. It's a very meditative thing, and I'm quite busy, as you said earlier, and so I don't feel that I want to just sit with my eyes closed meditating, which is fine, but I love the idea that you can do this kind of rhythmic spinning and make something and connect as well to the inner realms at the same time as doing it. So I will do some of that, and I do try to sit out for a little while every day. So to be outside, sitting in the garden. I mean, obviously for the last year it has been pretty much exclusively the garden.
Yeah.
But we're very lucky. The garden is actually an ancient medieval quarry, so that we can sit out there, and there are plenty of spirits, plant spirits, tree spirits, and spirits from the past that you can contact by sitting out there. So I would definitely do something like that. And if I'm out and about doing things, there might be something that I want to do a little spell for. And very often I like to do simple spells. Like, if I'm really keen to have success with something, I'll just pick a bay leaf and put it in my pocket, because a bay leaf is something to take for success. So just kind of incorporating small magics into my everyday life. Sometimes I might do a ritual during the course of the day, actually take magical items out to the garden and set things up and do a ritual, but that won't be every day. Once a week I do meet with my magical group, and we either go out into the landscape and go to some magical places and get inspiration from there, or we are here or at somebody else's magical place, working in the circle, doing some kind of ritual work, possibly for divination, possibly for spells, possibly working on behalf of the community. Obviously, as again, over the last year, I've just been working with one other person, because we're a bubble, so we're allowed to meet.
Okay.
And the rest of the group, we've had to meet online. So that's
yeah, but that's working okay though. That's quite an interesting disruption to what you would normally do.
It is a disruption, and it's been quite difficult for some of the other people in our group, for various reasons. They've needed to be shielding and not seeing anybody at all. But yeah, I mean, it's tough times, but we've done an enormous amount of work, kind of experimenting with what we can do to help the community, without actually being able to meet. Norwich Moot, which has been going for many, many years, longer than I've been here, probably 40 years, if not more. The Moot has been in existence, and we have meetings normally twice a month, but it's all had to be online. But what my magical friend and myself, we've been experimenting recently with trying to film rituals. So for Imbol, we filmed a ritual, not us floating around in cloaks or anything doing it, but actually from the point of view of the person doing the ritual. So we filmed what you would see if you were yourself doing the ritual.
Oh, okay. How interesting. And is that just for your use, or you putting it on Instagram? What are you doing with that?
It was I put it first on my Patreon, actually, and then a few days later it was used as the Moots Imbol ritual. So that was a private event. Then a few days after that, we actually put it on to YouTube, so you can actually look at that now.
Amazing. So this
celebrating the season of the snowdrop, it's called.
Oh, lovely. So I'll put this under our video, but what's the name of your, how do we find you on Patreon and YouTube? If you say now, and then I'll add it on later as well.
My Patreon is www.patreon.com/Val Thomas Witch.
Okay. And people can also find you on Instagram as Val Thomas Witch as well.
I am Instagram, yeah.
And is it the same on YouTube?
I can't remember.
You can tell me afterwards. I'll put it underneath.
I have to have technical help with these things. I'm talking about this as if I'm all very good with the technology, but actually, I do have help with it.
Like the Queen.
I don't know about that.
Are people doing that for you?
I am trying to learn it myself, but we're very fortunate that in our magical group we have a few people who are a lot younger than I am, who are very keen on their high-tech solutions, are also very good at it. So they're much quicker at it than some of us older members of the group are. And
that's all good. Yeah,
Yes.
it was, I have to say, it was very nice to find you on Instagram, actually. I thought, oh my
Well,
God.
yeah, I must be one of the oldest Instagram witches, I think.
Oh, I don't know about that, but it's an interesting thing, like the Insta witch, or the, you know, the rise of the Insta witch, and the sort of the witchcraft content which is on Instagram now. There's a lot of it. It's like a real thing now. There's a lot,
Absolutely. And some of
yeah,
it's lovely, isn't it?
really good. There's a lot there. There's a lot I found some brilliant people through Instagram, particularly tarot readers. Actually, there's just a wealth of people creating great content all the time.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it's lovely. I mean, I've never really got into it until the lockdown, but you know, I've met people from all over the world and corresponded with them, and you know, received gifts from them through the post, and sent gifts to Canada and America and Scandinavia. So you know, it's been a really kind of vibrant exchange of ideas and magical items.
oh, nice. Oh, I mean, I feel like I need to up my my postal gifting game. It's just, to get involved in that. Could do it with some nice things through the post. Be nice. Okay, what else did I want to ask you? Is there anything? Yeah, are there any kind of books or resources that you would particularly recommend to people watching, Val? And then maybe around herbalism, and also you have your own book which you should talk about.
Yes. Oh, well, my own book is published by Troy Books. It was published at the beginning of last year, so it's been out for a year now, and it's called Of Chalk and Flint: A Way of Norfolk Magic, and that's it's very much about doing magic in the landscape, and all of the examples, of course, are focused on Norfolk and focused on our practice. But I think, you know, if you look at it and apply the same principles, it would work anywhere in the world, probably. Certainly in the UK, is widely applicable. So the book goes through. It talks about the Lord of and the Lady of Norfolk, so the flint and the chalk first of all. Then about the sacred places in the landscape. Some of these wonderful places along the coastline, including, of course, Seahenge, which was a big thing a few years ago in Norfolk when it appeared. Some of the one of the Iron Age forts were on camp, which is lovely. A fabulous old ruined church with an oak tree right up through the centre of it,
Oh,
which we
wow, amazing.
leg. So it mentions all of these kind of magical places, and then there's a whole section about, you know, the seasonal practices that we do throughout the year. It's actually called the Quest of the Year. There's a little bit about the Materia Magica, operative magic. And about the community as well. So it really gives a picture of the practice of what we just refer to as a nameless tradition. Yeah, so that was that book. I did actually write another book 20 years ago. There was like 20 years between my first and my second book.
Yeah.
And that was called A Witch's Kitchen. And
Oh, is that still available for people to find?
Well, it was, but it was published by Capel Byrne, and they kept it in print for all that time. But you know, they have now stopped trading, sadly, so it made it a little bit more difficult to get. So
right, I'm sure we could still find it though, probably
oh,
fairly easily.
I'm sure
Yeah.
it is still, yeah, could get it secondhand probably. Yeah.
Okay, amazing.
So those are the two books that I wrote myself, but you know, I mean, you Anna have been to Quest as well, and I'm sure you'd agree that, you know, if people are looking for magical books, that, you know, Marion Green's books are all really useful, aren't they?
Yeah, she was one of the first people that I found as a teen, really, when I really started off with witchcraft, and yeah, would always really recommend her book still. In fact, I gave my copy of her 13, what's it, 13
Oh, A
moons?
Witch Alone,
A
13
Witch
moons
Alone,
to
yeah.
master natural magic.
Yeah,
Yes.
I gave my copy to a friend about a year ago, actually, and damn it, I think that's probably the fourth time that I've done this. I now have to buy it again, but that is a great book, and that again very much kind of quite conversant with your approach, like very much about starting out, go and explore your your local area, go and find springs, go and sit with the trees, do all of those things, observe your natural environment a lot.
Yes, it's about starting with the basics, isn't it? You working with what is around you, because everybody's area is slightly different, and you work with what's there, with what you know, and also you then look for what you need. And I think that's a very important.
Yeah, so that's Marion Green, and she has quite a lot of books now, doesn't she? And she
Lots
runs
now, yes.
in normal life, she runs an annual conference as well, the Quest conference, which we've mentioned, which is really, really great, and has usually it's like quite a few speakers and opportunities to chat with people and stalls and all those things. I really enjoyed it when I went.
Yes, it's a very small and very friendly conference, but it's been running for longer than any other conferences. It was quite a few years ago now that we celebrated 50 years of the Quest conference.
Wow, I didn't realise it was 50.
Yes,
That's
it's
bonkers.
been running over 50 years now.
Yeah, and again, I think I remember getting the Quest magazine. Again, like as a teen, I subscribed to it. I would send off my postal order, like for 4 issues every now and again. And that's I think quarterly magazine. Is she still doing it now?
Oh yes, and you still have to send a postal order or a check.
You do, right?
Oh yes, there are no online payments for that, and,
No.
and it's most definitely not available online.
No, old school.
Marion is not a witch who has any truck with technology at all.
I know. But that that's quite charming in itself. But that's a great magazine, and that will have lots of different articles every time from lots of different people talking, all manner of different subjects, which is
yes,
really,
very
really...
varied. Everything from witchcraft to ceremonial magic.
So I always recommend that as well. Great, there's some really good recommendations. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, if people are interested in what we're doing in this area as well, there's the Norwich Pagan Moot has its own website as well with lots of information on.
And so, sorry.
Yeah, and also we have here something called the Iknee Collection, which is a collection of magical items from East Anglia and from all over the world as well. We've got quite a good collection of magical items, but it's just...
Where are they? Like, you have them, or they're in a museum, or...
They're in our house at the moment. Yeah. But we're working on getting a premises, because we have quite a big library as well of books that we've collected over the years. So ideally we'd like to have a place where we can put the magical artifacts, the library, and then the moot and the community would be able to meet there as well. And my magical friend Nettles and I, we recently started working on a project that we call Living Norfolk Magic, which is also on Instagram. And that is about things that people are doing, right now. So every so often we announce a new project, and people donate things, magical items, to this collection, which represents the community as it is working its magic now.
Oh, how lovely! That sounds fantastic. That sounds fascinating.
Yeah, so we only started it last summer. So far we've got wands, poppets, spell bottles, masks, all sorts of things that people have contributed. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic! So a little bit like the Witchcraft Museum in Cornwall, in that it's a collection of items sort of found in the some found in the area.
Yes, yeah. I mean, obviously, that museum will always be, kind of the main magical museum in the UK. But that's 400 miles away from
Yeah,
us.
that's a long way.
It would be, that's why we think it would be lovely for us to have something here, and yeah, we just need a place to put it.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Oh, I'd love to come and see all that stuff at some point.
Oh, please do, please do. And you know, hopefully you'll come on an occasion when we're having one of our massive open rituals. That
yeah. Oh, yes, that would be lovely. And just to say for people watching, like it's a kind of a convention to use the word moot for a kind of a regular pagan local meetup, basically, isn't it?
yes, and I mean it's just really another word for a meeting, but it's a word.
The witchy word for it. Yeah.
A witchy word for a meeting or a club, I suppose.
Yeah. And often held at pubs or similar, or you know.
Well, interestingly, as the Norwich used to be in the pub, for many years, it was at the pub, the Coach and Horses pub in Norwich, in the centre of the city. But people went less and less to that, and they preferred the event we had at the community centre, which was a talk. So I think, you know, people are not so keen just to sit in the pub all evening now. They actually want to come out and learn something. And,
Yeah.
the thing that attracts the most people are the open rituals.
Okay, I'm going to end it there, Val, but thank you so much for talking to me tonight. It's been lovely.
Well, thank you so much for asking me. It's been really lovely to chat to you, and so lovely to reconnect after several years.
It's been, really lovely. And if anyone's interested in your Patreon, finding you on Instagram and on YouTube, I'm going to put all the details underneath here.
Lovely, thank you.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, lovely to talk to you. Bye.